Central family.
How are you, by the way? Just looking at all the things I want to accomplish today before 4 o'clock. I've got my hands full. I want to get to a lot of things, a lot of important things to do, and talk about some of the loons that were on with Jerry Agar earlier today, talking about the protest about the expansion of Darlington out in Pickering, and how it just absolutely makes no sense what those characters were up to yesterday. Now, will there be an election on the way in the spring? We'll find out. I mean, maybe we'll get a better impression of what's going to happen after the budget is laid out by Jim Flaherty coming up after 2 o'clock on the live, after 4 o'clock on the live drive with John Tory. Will they fall because they have held Parliament in contempt? Will they fall because of a budget? It's hard to say right now, but we'll find out as we move along. Peter Coleman joins us right now from the National Citizens Coalition. Peter, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
You're in Ottawa right now.
I'm actually in the rotunda in the Parliament buildings waiting to go in the stakeholders lockup to see what's actually in the budget.
What time is lockup start at?
The media one was this morning, Jim, but the non-media types go in at for 2:30, and then we get out at 4, like the rest of the media do as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, not everybody is going to be happy about what comes out of this. But what are your concerns? What are you most looking for in this budget?
Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to see, Jim, a substantially reduced deficit from the $54 billion level. I'm hoping we're going to see the federal government putting the reins on spending. The spending's been going up by, 5% a year for several years, and we're hoping that the stimulus spending being stopped will allow for substantial reduction in the deficit. And we're hoping for some indication that the government realizes it's at the federal level it's too big and needs to slow itself down.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a conservative government with what they have done because, obviously, of the recession, but government, the size of it has grown over the last little while, and we find ourselves back with our overall debt at, I think, somewhere near $570 billion, which is about where it was at the same point when Paul Martin was kicking around and addressed that. But do you really expect a minority government to be able to address some of those things?
Well, I'm kind of hoping, and that's part of the problem. Get the nail on the head, Jim. With a minority government, you tend to give away a lot more goodies than you may want to make Parliament work. But, the coalition group before the last budget was presented, or a year or two ago, they wanted $75 billion in deficit spending. The Conservatives, was less than that. But I think the challenge is, for sure, and I know the NDP were meeting with the Conservatives today to discuss some of the things in the budget. We're not privy to what the conversation was, but it seems like only Jack Layton's willing to work with Prime Minister Harper to try and get something done, and the Liberals seem to be hell-bent on election no matter what. So today will be interesting, so will the rest of the week.
Now, as a country and as the spokesman for the National Citizens Coalition, would it be good or bad if we have an election? I mean, are you okay with not having an election if it means throwing an olive branch to Quebec with $2.2 billion, or by helping out seniors, which is what the NDP would be happy with? If that stuff was done, is that something that you can live with?
Well, I think we'd like to see, obviously, the level of the debt reduced down and not big, huge spending plans. But I think this harmonization for Quebec's been the running for a bit. And, when you're in a minority government, you have to work with other parties. And that's been the challenge to do something along those lines. But, we as an organization look out for the taxpayers. And we're hoping that the government will see the fact that the spending has to be slowed down, because today's spending is down the road, either program cuts or tax increases. So we're really hoping that the line will be towed and that the other opposition leaders will be reasonable in their demands, because there isn't a lot of money to throw around these days.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen. I mean, perhaps the olive branch to the NDP would be enough to help float the Conservative government, but that they're not seriously going to address the deficit. I mean, they might stop spending programs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to attack and try to reduce the deficit.
No, you're 100% right. I think that's the challenge. I mean, I think the government at the total level needs a complete relook and zero-based budgeting and try and get departments closed that don't make sense. But that's the challenge right now. They don't seem to be willing to take that hard look at things as long as there's a minority government. There's all this wheeling and dealing going on. But, it doesn't seem to me that Jack Layton's demands are incredibly ridiculous. We haven't seen them yet, but we're already scheduled for a federal election in 2012, and elections cost around $300 million. And on this point, I agree with the Conservatives. I'm not sure what the point of the election is going to be, because I really don't believe there's any chance of changing leadership at the top. I think the Conservatives will win if elections called today, notwithstanding what's trying to be blown up. And I just really think for taxpayers, we don't need an election right now.
Yeah, and extending an olive branch to the NDP, while some might argue that it's not a conservative kind of plank that you would stand on, I would suggest that seniors. I'm not going to say right across the board, but seniors vote for conservatives. Conservatives tend to speak for seniors' issues. People know that seniors show up and vote, and it's not necessarily a bad thing for their survival to do something for seniors.
No, I agree with you totally, and I think that is a pretty strong democracy or consensus for the Conservatives to want their vote. But from what I understand, what Layton's asking for is not ridiculous, and he, quite frankly, of all the opposition leaders, comes across as the more of a statesman, if you will. The Liberals just seem to be rabid to go to an election and don't want to talk about what's in the budget or anything to do as far as helping. And Layton's shown, minority governments, you have to work with other parties. Yeah. You have to work with at least one, and I think the NDP's been prudent in what they're doing. I know some of their base may be upset with them working with the Conservatives, but at least two parties have to work with this, because the Conservatives have been at this risk of being defeated for the last 5 years, so nothing's new there. I mean, it seems like Layton is the guy, and everybody's concerned about Jack Layton's health. I'm sure he doesn't want us to go in an election campaign right now, too, as he's trying to recover from his cancer and everything else he's got going on.
Peter, I don't mean this in a smart-ass way, but what is the difference between the Canadian Taxpayer Federation and what you do at the National Citizens Coalition?
Yeah, we deal with government issues as far as waste and spending, but we also deal with free speech. We also deal with property rights. We deal with a wider sort of range and intent of issues than just taxes and balanced budgets, because there's a lot more issues out there that concern Canadians than just taxes and budgets and numbers, too. There's a lot of things as far as, free speech, the Human Rights Commissions, unfair labor laws. So we get involved in all those areas, Jim.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Enjoy the lockup if that's possible.
Yeah, it's like pulling teeth this half, I think.
I bet. 145 News Talk 1010 time saver.